I inherited my grandmother's property on the edge of a ridiculously wealthy development called Serenity Peak. The main house was nice, but the heart of the property was the orchard. 2 acres of ancient apple, pear, and cherry trees my grandmother planted 60 years ago. It was my sanctuary. The HOA, led by a woman named Patricia Vance, whose smile was as sharp as her bob cut, saw it as an agricultural blight. The first notice came on paper so thick you could build furniture with it. Notice of violation. Case number 01 Orchard. Dear property owner, it has come to the board's attention that you are maintaining a non-conforming orchard on Lot 12. This violates Community Bylaw, Section 14, Paragraph A, Land Use and Aesthetic Purity. Fruit trees are considered untidy due to fallen fruit, which attracts vermin and insects. Furthermore, the uncontrolled pollination may compromise the genetic integrity of our approved ornamental landscaping. You have 90 days to remove the offending vegetation and resod with an approved turf grass. Sincerely, the Serenity Peak Governing Board. President, Patricia Vance. Uncontrolled pollination. I read that sentence 5 times. I couldn't make it make sense. I went to the first HOA meeting I'd ever attended. Ms. Vance, I said, my voice calm, this orchard predates Serenity Peak by 40 years. It's grandfathered in. She gave me a pitying look. The grandfather clause applies to structures, dear, not to uncontrolled propagating flora. Your trees are a pest magnet. My husband, Chad, saw a squirrel. A squirrel. A man in a polo shirt, Chad presumably nodded solemnly. The room murmured in agreement. I was living in a satire. I refused. I lawyered up. We sent cease and desist letters. The HOA responded by changing the rules, holding a secret vote to specifically ban fruit-bearing trees of any kind, regardless of prior establishment. The fines started. $200 a day. They piled up into the tens of thousands. Then, one spring morning, I woke up to a chemical smell so strong it made my eyes water. My entire orchard, every single tree, had been doused in a foul-smelling herbicide. The blossoms were already wilting. I had security camera footage of a truck from Serenity Peak Landscaping driving along the edge of my property the night before, a hose spraying a mist over my fence. Patricia's response to my furious email was a masterpiece. Our landscaping crew was treating for noxious weeds on the common area. Wind drift is an unfortunate, uncontrollable act of God. Perhaps this is a sign that the land wishes to be purged of its current state. My hands shook with rage, but I took a deep breath. My grandmother always said this land had a soul. I was done playing defense. It was time to learn their own rules better than they did. I became a scholar of the Serenity Peak CC and RS. I read every bylaw, every amendment, every line, and I found gold. Patricia Vance, the high priestess of purity, was a fraud. Violation. Her own massive, heated koi pond was a non-approved water feature, requiring a permit she never got. Bylaw 11C. Violation. The architectural gem of her house, a huge glass conservatory, was built without ARC approval and violated setback rules. Bylaw 5A and 5F. The motherlode. I discovered a clause stating that any common area maintenance costing over $2,000 required 3 competitive bids. I filed a records request. The landscaping bill for the month my orchard was sprayed was $18,000, paid to a company owned by Patricia's brother-in-law. I had her, but I was waiting for the right moment. The fines were now a financial crushing weight, and the HOA had filed a lien on my house. That summer, the county issued a strict burn ban. It was tinder dry. The air was thick with tension and the smell of smoke from distant wildfires. I received a final, devastating notice. Due to the unpaid fines and the persistent fire hazard of the dead, dry orchard, the HOA had obtained a court order for abatement. They were legally authorized to clear the land themselves and bill me for it. My lawyer was apoplectic. It's a shady judge and a shady ruling, but it's a ruling. They're coming tomorrow with a crew to clear the hazard. I felt a profound, gut-wrenching grief. They weren't just cutting down trees. They were erasing my grandmother's legacy. That night, I walked through the orchard. The trees were skeletons, their leaves killed by the poison. The air was still and hot. I put my hand on the gnarled trunk of the first apple tree my grandmother ever planted. "I'm so sorry," I whispered. I tried. A strange breeze, cool and focused, rustled only the branches of that one tree. Felt like an acknowledgement. The next day they arrived. Patricia, Chad, and a crew of men with chainsaws and a wood chipper. But chainsaws are slow for 2 acres of mature trees. Patricia, impatient and triumphant, had a better idea. "It's a fire hazard. We'll do a controlled burn. It's the fastest way. We'll contain it." Even the crew looked nervous. "Ma'am, there's a county-wide burn ban," one said. "This is a legal abatement procedure," she snapped. "We are the law here." They used gasoline. They started at the edge nearest the Serenity Peak homes, thinking the wind, a steady breeze blowing towards my property, would carry the fire safely away from their multi-million-dollar mansions. The dry, poisoned wood caught instantly. The fire roared to life, an orange beast consuming my history, my memories, my sanctuary. I watched from my porch, numb, tears cutting clean lines through the dust on my face. Patricia stood with her arms crossed, a smug look of final victory. But then, something impossible happened. The fire, which had been raging hungrily into my property, suddenly hesitated. The flames seemed to stand still. And then, as if a giant hand had reached down from the sky, the wind reversed. Not just died down, reversed. It blew back with a force that was unnatural, howling directly towards Serenity Peak. The controlled fire, now a wall of flame, surged backward. Embers the size of fists, born on this new, vengeful wind, sailed over the heads of Patricia and her crew. They landed on the cedar shake roofs of the Serenity Peak homes. They landed on Patricia's unpermitted conservatory, a giant glass box that acted like a furnace. They landed on Chad's prized vintage Corvette, parked illegally in their driveway. Panic erupted. The fire department was called, but it was too late. The very wind that was supposed to protect them was now delivering their own destruction back to them. The fire hazard they were so eager to burn became the conduit for their own ruin. The news called it a freak weather phenomenon, a thermal inversion, a 1-in-a-million wind shift. I knew better. My grandmother knew that land. She'd nurtured it, and it had just defended itself. The fallout was absolute. Patricia and Chad's house was a total loss. The koi pond a blackened crater. For other multimillion-dollar homes suffered severe damage. The insurance companies descended like locusts, and when they investigated the cause, they found a HOA president who had ignored a county burn ban, used gasoline to start a fire, and had a clear record of corrupt and hypocritical behavior, all of which I happily provided to the investigators and the local news. Patricia was sued into oblivion by her own neighbors. She was removed from the HOA board in a vote that was less of an election and more of an execution. The new board, terrified and contrite, immediately dropped all fines and the lien against my property. The final, beautiful justice? The settlement from the various lawsuits provided enough funds for me to not only pay off my mortgage, but to hire a team of arborists. We discovered that the deep root systems of the old orchard had survived. New shoots are emerging from the ashes. The land is healing. And Serenity Peak? They've relaxed the bylaws. A few people are even planting small, decorative fruit trees in their yards. They don't call it an agricultural blight anymore. They call it a miracle. So remember, folks, you can break the rules, you can break the bank, but don't ever think you can break the spirit of a place that's loved. Because sometimes the land itself knows how to fight back. Thanks for watching. If you believe in karma, give this video a like.